And Vice Chair Cott, or, oh, here comes.
Here he comes.
Wait, give me 30 seconds because Commissioner Kai is rounding the corner right now. So we'll have ex-chair, ex-vice chair Kai be the acting vice chair tonight. Commissioner Wydola's not here, so. All right, we're gonna call to order the City of Sherwood Planning Commission meeting for April 25th, 2023. Roll call.
Chair Simpson,
Here.
Commissioner Kai,
Present.
Commissioner Montalvo, Commissioner Vance,
Here.
Commissioner Barnes,
Here.
Commissioner Capito. Here.
And for those of you that missed it, we have two new commissioners' names that were called this evening. I want to welcome Corey Capco and Tyler Barnes as our new planning commissioners. And I probably stole the thunder for the staff announcements later, but I was very excited. We as a commission have already engaged with our new commissioners because we had a work session, and so I'm very pleased that they are joining us this evening. I think their participation will be very much appreciated and valued. So this evening we have a consent agenda that consists of the approval of the February 28th regular meeting minutes and the April 11th work session minutes. And I have I have a typo that's on the staff announcements. The second bullet point, the application is on the city website. And then on page 4, I don't know, I should have said something ahead of time. It's an incomplete sentence. We're listening to Brian Farraconi with Mackenzie, and about the third or fourth sentence, he said this focuses on the uses, that are permitted under the code. Oh, if you read it out loud, you get it. But, sorry. So, yeah, if you read it out loud, it's a full sentence. But 3 paragraphs later, Commissioner Vance on the left turn into the property from Tualatin and Sherwood Road, period.
Thanks. I was going to ask about that one.
Okay. That's, so what was the sentence?
I think I was asking about the left turn, and if there was enough room or something. I can't remember exactly. We'd have to go back and listen probably what it was, but it looks like it meant to say Commissioner Vance commented on the left turn. That's what it appears to.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, any other comments on the minutes before we get a motion to accept the consent agenda? All right.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of the consent agenda as edited, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Council liaison announcements. Councilor Stansky?
I have no announcements tonight.
No announcements. All right. Thank you. And thank you for attending, because it's nice to see you, because I know it's kind of confusing to keep coming, but you relate to the council what we're doing here. So, all right. Staff announcements.
Yes, I have a few announcements this evening. My first announcement is that the next Sherwood West Community Advisory Committee, CAC, will be meeting next month, May 11th. And the packet of materials will be online later this week to give everybody plenty of time to actually go through and read the draft concept plan. So that's pretty exciting. It will be up online later this week.
So at that May 11th meeting, the Citizen Advisory Committee will review the entire draft plan, make comments, and then it's going to come before this body as a public hearing.
That's correct. And then before it comes to Planning Commission as a public hearing, we're going to have a joint meeting with the City Council. So I hope all of you can attend that on May 16th. That'll be a work session with Council. I don't have the time quite yet, but when I do, I will let all of you know the time on that one as well. And then our next regular Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for May 9th, 7 o'clock.
All right. Any other announcements? Nope.
That's it. Eric, do you have any? I think that's it.
All right. Community comments. Community comments are limited to those items not already on the agenda. And as the audience consists of the applicant, I'm leap of faith, we have no community comments, and we'll move on to public hearings. All right. Public hearing on Sherwood Plaza zone change and partition land use case file LU 2023-005 PA MLP is called to order. I'll now turn to staff for the hearing introduction.
The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present the staff report. There'll be questions by the hearing body for staff. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and time will be limited as follows. Applicant will have 30 minutes, and that's split between presentation and rebuttal. Then we'll have persons in favor of the application, 4 minutes, persons opposed to the application, 4 minutes each, and then rebuttal from the applicant, which is the remainder of their 30 minutes. Then no other testimony will be taken from the public or applicant unless public testimony period is reopened. Then we'll have final comments by staff, and then questions of staff, if any, by the commission, and then we'll have deliberation by the commission. A recommendation may be made by the Planning Commission at the close of the hearing to the Sherwood City Council, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain. If the matter is continued to a date and time certain, this will be the only notice of that date that you will receive. Staff did not receive any notification 24 hours in advance from anyone wanting to provide public testimony virtually. However, the applicant, they do have one of their consultants on board virtually who may want to speak. But if you're in the audience this evening and wish to speak, please fill out one of the testimony forms and submit it to planning staff. The chair will recognize people who wish to speak. When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record. Any questions should be addressed through the chair. In reaching a decision on the application, the commission must consider whether the application meets the relevant approval criteria in the city's land use regulations. Those criteria are identified in the staff report. The staff report is available online and at City Hall. The staff report was accessible to the public 7 days prior to this meeting date, and the testimony and evidence must address these criteria or any other criteria you believe to apply to the decision. Please note, failure to raise an issue with enough detail to enable the commission, the applicant, and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the City Council or Land Use Boards of Appeals on that issue. Also, failure by the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues regarding proposed conditions of approval, again, without enough detail to allow the commission to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. So at this time, I would like to ask members of the commission to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest, and please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing this evening. So with that, I'm going to call on the commissioners. Commissioner Vance.
Good evening. Nothing other than what I overheard a little bit over here between you guys, but nothing that would cause any bias or no bias, conflict of interest, or otherwise ex parte contact for me. And I do intend to participate. Yeah.
Commissioner Burns.
Same thing with the overhearing. No bias or anything of the sort, and I do wish to participate.
Commissioner Kai.
None, and I plan to participate.
Commissioner Capco.
I have no ex parte contact, and I plan to participate.
Commissioner Montalvo.
None, and I plan to participate this evening. Thanks.
Chair Simpson.
I have no ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest. I did participate in the previous hearing that was on this item in 2016, but that is all matter of public record, and I do plan to participate this evening.
Does any member of the audience wish to challenge any Planning Commission member's ability to participate in the hearing this evening? All right, so now I will present the staff report.
Can you clarify, though, before you do that?
Yes.
It states at the top that it precludes the applicant and the parties an opportunity to appeal to City Council, but this is a recommendation to City Council with an appeal city council's decision to LUBA, correct?
Yes, but then we read that part because there's also a partition applied with the application, so it's legislative and that quasi judicial.
So are we
So-
making the final decision on the minor land partition tonight? Or is it going as a packet to the council to make the final decision?
It's going as a packet to city council. So ultimately, the final decision maker is council, and then if somebody wanted to appeal, it would go to LUBA.
Okay, so it is appealable to LUBA after the city council's decision.
Correct.
And we are only making a recommendation on
Yes.
both applications. Okay. Thank you.
Nope.
And-
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, just want to make sure.
I'll just add it, in case it sounds a little odd to take a minor land partition to city council. So, if there's a possibility that the applications could be separated, if things aren't going in the applicant's direction, I think they will. But in case they're not, we can separate the applications and actually just process the minor land partition if that's needed. So it doesn't have to go all the way up, but it can.
But as it's presented this evening by the staff report, it's going to be a recommendation because of the zone change.
Yes, we're doing concurrent. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right, Commission. So before you tonight is land use case file number 2023-005, zone change and minor land partition. So the applicant is proposing a 2-parcel partition to create a 3.3 acre parcel and a subsequent zone change for the 3.3 acre parcel from retail commercial to high density residential. The parcel is located along Southwest Linger Drive, and this is a type 5 application because it is a zone change, and the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to City Council. So here is the location of the site. The site is, the overall site is the Sherwood Plaza Center located along Southwest Linger Drive, south of Highway 99. The site is improved with the Sherwood Shopping Mall and the associated commercial uses. The 3.3 acre portion of the site is located on the eastern side. It is currently vacant and looks like a field if you drive by. I apologize, I'm trying to fix my computer here. So the site is identified on the slide with a star and is zoned retail commercial, as reflected in the red coloring on the map. The properties north and west of the subject site are also zoned retail commercial, with land uses consisting of retail shops, restaurants, fast food, service stations, etc. And the properties to the east are zoned high-density residential planned unit development, with land uses of attached townhomes and an apartment complex. And then the properties to the south are also zoned high-density residential planned unit developments and retail commercial planned unit development with land uses consisting of a residential care facility and an apartment complex. And so here's the care facility. Here's the apartment complex right in here, and then these are the small lots in Arbor Terrace. Oh, you cannot see that, can you? I'm so sorry.
Hey, there it is.
Care home, apartment complex right in here, and then the Arbor Terrace, small lot planned unit development right in this area. All right, so in this slide, we show the 2-lot partition here. So the area in red will remain retail commercial, and the site located in that orange is shown as high-density residential. And again, we have parcel 1, which would remain the shopping center, and then parcel 2 would be rezoned as high-density residential. And just taking a look at parcel 2, I just want to clarify kind of the lot width here, and I'm sure the applicant too, when they come up, they can kind of speak to it. But the lot width at the top is about 160 feet, and then at the smallest portion of the site, it's around 145 feet. There might be a question about that. But this slide shows all the applicable chapters of the development code. A zone change has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, state planning goals, and the transportation planning rule. And then in summary, the partition needs to be consistent with each of the zone's dimensional standards. It has to adequately be served by infrastructure, and it can't hinder development on adjacent parcels. And we'll talk about all those criteria here in just a couple slides. But first, I want to kind of go over the uses, both in the retail commercial zone and the high-density residential zone. So the current use of retail commercial generally allows for all sorts of general retail stores, restaurants, medical, business, and professional offices. And it also allows for multifamily housing subject to specific standards, including the entire ground floor must be completely non-residential. Housing is only permitted on the upper floors. The first floor also has the minimum ceiling height of 12 feet, and the maximum density is that of the high-density residential zone. And the development must include parking for both housing and commercial uses. And then just for reference, you can find all of these uses in our code in table 16.22.020. The high density residential zone provides for higher density multifamily housing with a density between 16.8 to 24 dwelling units per acre. And building types generally consist of attached townhomes, apartments, and condos. So the criteria for the map amendment is presented on this slide. A zoning map amendment needs to be, as I said, consistent with the goals and policies of the city's comp plan and transportation plan. And there also needs to be a demonstrated need for the particular uses and zoning proposed. And the proposed amendment needs to be timely considering the pattern of development and surrounding land uses and other zoned land proposed for the users that could be unavailable or unsuitable within the city currently. So with that, I'm going to talk here about the demonstrable need and kind of the timeliness factors. So the housing needs analysis shows that Sherwood has a deficit of homes in our 20-year forecasted supply. This includes all housing types in all residential zones, but there is a deficit of 145 high-density residential units. You know, the HNA supports the ongoing need for residential land at all cities, and alternative sites here in the city are limited due to availability and the need for annexation to occur in addition to needed infrastructure. One of the larger higher density residential sites is actually located in the Berkman area. It's about a little bit over 10 acres in size. Currently, it's not adjacent to the city boundary, so it can't annex into the city. And then it also needs significant infrastructure investments for it to be served with sewer and water. The applicant has also provided additional analysis on the challenges of retail uses in the current location. The site's location and configuration present challenges to retail use in terms of visibility and access and effective site planning for that site. The residential uses are more than likely feasible, and multifamily development is a common transitional use between residential and commercial areas. The applicant has also prepared a transportation planning rule analysis to determine the possible impacts on the city's transportation system. So the analysis found that a zone change to high-density residential would result in fewer trips, and that the traffic volume would remain consistent with the city's adopted transportation system plan. ODOT Also reviewed the analysis and concurred that there will be a reduction of the number of trips from general commercial to high-density residential, and it will not have a significant impact to Highway 99. So as proposed, the application meets the partition requirements in the city's development code. Both parcels meet the minimum dimensional and setback standards. Parcel 1 is the retail commercial standards in the code, and then parcel 2 is the high density residential. The applicant is required to dedicate some right-of-way frontage along Southwest Langer Drive, and an 8-foot public utility easement is required along Southwest Langer Drive as well. And then no other park, floodplain, sanitary, sewer, stormwater, water supply dedication is necessary for this project, or for the partition. There's adequate water, sanitary, sewer, and other public facilities that can support the proposed use of the partitioned land for parcel 2. And then parcel 1 is fully developed with, the retail mall, and parcel 2 can be fully developed in the future. So this partition isn't hindering any sort of development either on parcel 1 or on parcel 2. So with that, we routed this application to affected agencies and departments on April 4th. We supplied adequate public notice, and as of tonight, we haven't received any formal comments on this application. And then we, published the public hearing in the Times, and then 5 places around the city as required by code. So, like I said, we haven't received any public comments at the time of writing the staff report, and I don't think we were going to have any public comments this evening, except from the applicant. So with that, staff's recommendation this evening, based on the findings and applicable code criteria, staff recommends that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval of the proposed map amendment and partition, Sherwood Plaza case file LU 2023-005 PA and the LP to the Sherwood City Council. But that is just staff's recommendation. We do have some alternatives for the Planning Commission to consider. You can approve the findings in the staff report and recommend approval to City Council. You can modify the findings and approve the staff report as modified. Or you can modify the findings and deny the proposed amendments based on the Commission's findings. With that, I do want to say that there are just a couple typos within the staff report. Instead of being the criteria starting on packet page, I believe 13, it should be the criteria are met, not net. There's a couple, so we want to fix those. And then also on packet page 33, under condition of approval B9, condition of approval B9 should be inserted on that packet page 33. And so condition of approval B9 is on packet page 35, and it just reads, prior to final plat, an engineering compliance agreement shall be executed between the developer and the city of Sherwood. Some minor changes to incorporate. And that will conclude my presentation this evening.
Writing down what you just said. Okay. Anyone have any questions of the staff before we call the applicant up? Yeah, we'll have it under deliberation. All right. Holiday. And if you just state your, name and address for the record.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. My name is Marie Holiday with AKS Engineering and Forestry. Address for the record is 12965 Southwest Herman Road, Suite 100, Tualatin, Oregon, 97062. And up for your consideration this evening is the Sherwood zoning map amendment and partition application. This project was a culmination of efforts on behalf of the applicant, Six Corners LLC. Again, my name is Marie Holiday with AKS, and we also have Darko Simic here, the lead engineer on the project. The transportation engineering analysis was performed by Kittleson and Associates, and sorry, this screen isn't. I just don't want it to cut off the next slides. And the land use economics report was prepared by Johnson Economics, and we do have Brendan over Zoom with us this evening if there's any questions on economic need. Perfect. Thank you. So staff gave a very thorough presentation, so I'll go ahead and try and stay brief here. The property is 13.25 acres located in the northwest portion of Sherwood. You can see there the property shown with a purple border along Southwest Linger Drive, south of 99. And this application also includes a 2-parcel partition, which is technically a type 2 administrative application, but this is bundled in with the zone change application so that we can only do a zone change on the east portion of the site, which is currently vacant. So you can see there the zoning map amendment is anticipated to high density residential. You can see to the south of the site there's the Avamere at Sherwood, convalescent care, Sunfield Lakes Apartments, which is also high density there to the south, and then more attached housing there to the east along Linger Drive. North of the site, there's more commercial development in the Sherwood Market Center, including Hobby Lobby, other restaurants and retail services. And then the western portion of the subject site is again developed with the Sherwood Plaza, and those improvements are planned to remain as they currently are. That large orange building there shown is a strip mall. The biggest user in there is a Ross, and so you can see the eastern portion of the site does have some challenges in regards to visibility and kind of being behind that commercial center there. And it's also worth mentioning that a future site plan review application will be submitted for the additional improvements envisioned on the site. So here's an overview of the preliminary partition plat. The property again is 13.2 acres. So the Sherwood Plaza portion to remain commercial will be just shy of 10 acres, and the eastern vacant portion of the site is about 3.3 acres. Access is planned to remain from Southwest Linger Drive. And there's a 40-foot access easement from parcel 1, so you can see there that we're continuing to use that joint access there. Here's an image of the City of Sherwood zoning map. Again, you can see the site is currently retail commercial. Generally, commercial activity continues to the northwest of the site, and then residential, including other high-density residential, is south and east of the property. That hatched overlay is a planned unit development, but again, it's the same high-density zoning. And this application is again up for your consideration this evening as just the zoning map amendment, but here's a conceptual site plan to help you envision what the site could look like in the future. Again, very conceptual beginning stages, but envisioned as a multifamily residential community. Again, that shared access from Southwest Linger Drive. And the provision of public improvements, including water, sewer, franchise utilities, architectural design standards, and whatnot, those will all be reviewed through a site plan review application in the future. So the zoning map amendment approval criteria starts on page 11 of the staff report, I believe, and Erica went through all of those criteria, but Staying brief, the application demonstrates consistency with the comprehensive plan goals and policies. We were looking at the attainable residential housing standards for those. The use complies with the transportation planning rule. The TPR analysis was again performed by Kittleson and Associates, and it shows a down zone in trips between commercial and the envisioned HDR zone. So a decrease in envisioned trips there. And then the meat of the criteria is in section 16.080B. And these criteria are demonstrating, again, the demand for residential land. The city specifically has a deficit for 145 HDR units, but again, over 600 units in general across all zoning districts. The application demonstrates compatibility with the land use pattern. Again, it's continuing that high-density residential development around a lot of walkable commercial amenities and services for residents, and it sets the stage to develop this vacant portion of Sherwood that has a lot of opportunity. So with that, the applicant concurs with the staff findings and conditions in the staff report, and also the staff recommendation of approval. And we would appreciate any questions you have this evening and your recommendation of approval to City Council.
All right, does anybody have any questions of the applicant?
Can you tell me a little bit about the history, this all being one site and only part of it getting developed into commercial and the other part just vacant? Was that kind of, I mean, obviously it wasn't accidental that you just built the west half commercial. I mean, what was the idea originally? Were you always expecting the city would come back and make a zoning change, or how'd that play out?
We went back and reviewed a lot of the current lease history on the site, and we thought maybe that portion of the site, was envisioned as open space from the beginning stages, but it's sort of unclear. Erica mentioned that an application was submitted in 2016 and approved for residential apartments. So for a few years now, the owner has been looking to develop the site. As you can see, the site poses some challenges in regards to its current configuration, including visibility for commercial businesses there and development. Being on the back side of a commercial building isn't a great entrance for users and whatnot. So I don't know that a zone change was always envisioned, considering there was an application approved previously, but it makes a lot of sense that the site is still vacant with its current zoning.
Okay, so originally the idea was it's just vacant space because the retail center's over here, and now we want to develop something, so this is that makes the most sense to develop. Pretty much that's where you're at. Okay, all right, thank you.
I think the other part is that prior to the change in how high-density residential can be developed on retail commercial, previously it was apartments were allowed straight out. And with an update to the code a few years ago, if it's zoned retail commercial, if you want to put apartments in there, you have to have the ground floor be retail, which wasn't that way in 2016 when they came before, and obviously that approval lapsed before development occurred. So I think potentially apartments had already been approved, but they just didn't get built, and then things changed. So
Thanks for the color.
any other questions for the applicant? This probably is not your parcel, but I think it's not your parcel. There's a grass strip just to the east of that. Is that a buffer zone? Do you know what that is? Is it intended to be something?
To the east of, I'm sorry?
To
The east of the Sherwood Plaza building?
No, to the east of your parcel. Is that, I'm just trying to figure out if that's a buffer or what?
It's not. It's actually an access lane for the Sunfield Lakes apartments. That lot is configured as a flag lot. You can't really see on this image, kind of barely, but that's a driveway that connects to Southwest Linger Drive there, and it's actually configured as a flag lot.
Okay, but you're going to fence or provide a barrier. So you're not going to take access from there. You're going to take your access through the existing driveway on Lot 1, correct?
According to, well, this will all kind of move forward with the site plan review, but there are some challenges in regards to site access. We don't have enough frontage to create our own access, so the goal is to share an access either with the existing parcel 1 to the west of the site or through another means. You can see along Southwest Linger Drive there at the top of the screen, there is an inlet proposed to that access drive. It could also be realigned with Holland Drive if that was desired, but again, all of the public improvements were kind of kicked down the road to the site plan review application based on getting the zoning approved.
Okay, because condition B3 states that you will get that. You'll do a shared access or get private access approval.
That's
through
correct. The partition, yes, it has a 40-foot access easement currently, which benefits the eastern portion of the site. So we would be using the same access there on the north property line.
I'm not sure where you were pointing then on the other access that you were.
Before we leave that access though, so are you saying that that access point in the north would be expanded, be widened? Because there's a more easement onto the eastern parcel?
The access easement proposed currently is a 40-foot access easement, and that's to cover the existing driveway improvements, which would benefit parcel 2.
But I'm just trying to envision that particular access point. Is it already 40 feet across, or is it going to be widened to accommodate 40 feet?
No, it wouldn't be widening any existing improvements. It's just covering, that area. There is some sidewalk and some other curbing and whatnot in that area. It's not all just a driveway. So to answer your question, yes, the parcel 2 will be using a joint access. Currently, it's proposed with parcel 1, but that could be changed in the future if desired.
If you can get the neighbor on the other side to let
Correct,
you go.
yeah.
Okay. And
Currently, like I mentioned, the property to the east, it is configured as a flag lot. It does have a public access easement over it, but we proposed access through the existing site.
Okay. I'm just trying to that driveway. I'm just envisioning it. It seems pretty small, but okay.
So if you could go to the previous slide that had more of the detail of that potential access. Yeah, this one here. Now, how much are we, or should we take into consideration this conceptual portion right now? Because my understanding, it's
No.
not part of
It's
this,
not.
right?
That's correct.
Okay.
It'll come back as a site plan review down the road.
Okay.
My only reason for asking is I don't want. I just want to make sure they have access so that they're not creating their own hardship.
Well, and something that I would imagine there would need to be considerable improvements to the back of Sherwood Plaza if there's going to be this much access shared between the two properties, because as it stands right now, the back of Sherwood Plaza is in terms of where vehicles park and vehicles traveling through, it's not ideal to handle significant amounts of travel accessing in and out through it from an apartment. So my suggestion would be to focus on the access points closer to Linger Drive versus this one in the rear. I see that as potentially problematic.
But that'll all be addressed in the site plan thing. So say we approve the zoning change, now they're going to put together a plan to build something there, and access has to be addressed by code for this, and we'll evaluate it at that point if they presume.
Is there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So right now through the partition, parcel 1 and parcel 2 need access. So they're demonstrating right now in their application that that parcel 2, the new parcel, has access
By condition B3.
by condition B3. Now, that access could change in the future when a new site plan comes in for the Planning Commission to review.
What you're saying is even as just a separate partitioned lot, it needs access, and there it is. There's
Exactly.
access to it by these means, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Now, if they want to build something there, different access standards, or according to code, rather. According to code, got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. I don't see anybody else wanting to testify. I do appreciate the information that was provided in our application. It was your economic opportunities analysis was clear, concise. The executive summary was really helpful. And transportation is transportation, so it was nice to have that ODOT letter that just slung right in there. So
It's worth
Appreciate-
mentioning too that the site plan review will have a transportation impact analysis with it for specific trip generation for, you know, what's built out there, and take into account any mitigations along any intersections and whatnot with that. So.
I'm sure TVF&R will chime in when it comes to secondary accesses for life, health, safety matters too, so.
Yeah, I would like to, we have a TVR stamp on it, and I'm trying to figure out how they stamp the conceptual plan with the,
You might be looking at the other application that was done in 2016.
all right, that makes more sense.
So we actually were required to get a TVF&R SPL based on the partition, and so it's basically just a stamp of approval saying that the fire department can currently serve the site as it is, which is a vacant field. So if that.
All right, thank you.
Oh, cool, thank you. I did get completely confused with the other application being in here from 2016. That was like, I spun myself into a circle reading. Seeing my name signed already in a place, someplace in the application, I was like, missed that one. All right, we do not have any other members of the audience here to testify in favor or in opposition or neutral to the testimony. So I would, rebuttal testimony seems unnecessary. So before I close the public hearing, does the staff have anything to add?
I do not this evening.
Okay, does any member of the commission have questions regarding any part of the testimony or staff report up to this point?
I have a question for staff. Just, can you remind me, does HDR allow any amount of non-residential or residential support uses by right?
I can't remember that off the top of my head.
Okay,
But I can look it up here really quick. Okay. I want to say, I don't think it does, but I could be wrong.
and I had a second question.
Home occupations, agricultural uses, care facilities, daycare. There are some conditional uses.
Yeah, I was just thinking of what might be allowed by right, just in that zone. I could just see something small along Langer Drive as a residential support use, perhaps.
So, come on.
So the high density residential zone doesn't allow for any small commercial uses, but it would allow for, as a conditional use, public and private schools and daycare facilities.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you
And-
on 16-12-020? Am I reading the wrong place?
In the use table?
Yeah. So it has home occupations, family daycare, residential care facility,
I don't think I would classify as those as
Those are
commercial.
residentially.
Those
yeah.
are residentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then just one other clarifying question. The development to the east, the multi-dwelling development to the east was approved as a planned development. Did that have any, do you recall if it had any specific height restrictions that would be different than what this zone would allow?
I don't recall that that application.
Okay.
That was the Arbor Terrace planned unit development, and
Okay. Yeah, that's not that. Thank you.
Anything that applied to that one would be only specific to the Arbor Terrace, though, correct?
correct.
Okay.
I'm totally following now the 40-foot thing, now that I get the access with the site plan deal versus now, which that provides it now. So now I understand B3, what it's getting at. So B3 is basically saying that the lot next door needs to have an easement, but if it's not already in place, there has to be an access easement to make sure this site has access. So it can't get partitioned unless that access is guaranteed. Okay, so is there currently an easement then in place for that access? Or is it just a condition that somehow one is established, is recorded? I guess it doesn't matter, it's a condition.
So it's a condition.
Yeah,
And so they'll have to meet that condition
Got it.
in order to partition, to create that access.
okay.
And it's with the parcel to the east?
To the east.
Okay.
The new parcel, that through the,
So the easement
Three
is,
quarters.
so they have a single commercial plaza right now that has this property that's going to be broken off. They need to grant themselves an access easement through the shopping center to this parcel. Because they own the property now. It's one owner, they can grant the easement.
Yeah, okay.
There's another easement to the east, which is part of the apartment complex, the Sunfield Apartments, and that goes out to Langer Drive. That's a completely separate easement. Potentially, as part of the site plan, the developer could go to that apartment complex and say, hey, can we also come through, we have access through our shopping center, can we also come through this as well, or can we come through the public street that runs kind of perpendicular to this site. So they have one guaranteed, and I think through the site plan, and either the code or staff would probably, really strongly recommend that they get a second
If they can.
access. Yeah.
From the neighboring owner, yeah. All right, but for this application, it's just the one is all that's required.
correct, between
Yes.
parcel 1 and parcel 2.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
They need to,
understood.
they're
Thank you.
conditioned to give themselves an easement.
Yes,
Yep.
right, yeah, so it'll get done.
Eric, you said that the road, the street to the east is a public street, correct?
There's I don't know if we can pull up the map again, but there's Sunfield Apartments.
Yeah.
And that actually, the development is really to the south of this site, and it has frontage on Century is really where all of the entrances are. But as part of that site plan approval, for some reason, I'm not quite sure why, fire access, some other reason, pedestrian access, they put in, or the city required, a 40-foot wide easement to Langer. So they have access on Century, and then they also have this 40-foot strip that goes out to Langer.
So,
So could we bring up a map?
Are we in deliberation now? Just want to.
no, we're still asking for clarification, but we could, because I haven't closed the public
That's
hearing.
fine, yeah.
We see an aerial.
No, I think what they're talking about is down to Century Drive. So
But the flag lot, I believe, is off Langer.
it's right here.
Yeah.
But there's a road here.
Yeah, that's good. It goes all the way.
Yeah, so that road where you're
Right.
at right now, Erica, so that is a public.
That's an public
Public
easement. So that, the road, really driveway, running north to south,
Yep.
that serves the Sunfield Lake Apartments all the way to the south.
Oh, okay.
Down here.
And then the road that you see coming into that perpendicular, that one, that is a public road. That's part of the planned unit development. But in this map, it looks like there's a connection. There's no physical connection between the two. It's a barrier there.
Correct.
So I think ideally, the code always wants the access to be preferable from a local road. So
Yeah.
I think if we can work with the apartment complex
Gotcha.
and get access from that public road, that would be ideal.
Yep.
Might not be possible because they don't have to agree to it. We need to take a look at the past approvals and see, because it is that north-south is a public access easement, so city might have some teeth there to actually get them to relinquish that and punch the road through.
Yep.
I think that's to be determined though through the site plan application.
Okay.
But I think it's all on the table. I mean, potentially coming in on that north-south easement as well is a possibility.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And at this point, we are accepting staff report recommendation that the 40-foot wide driveway as a single point access across lot 1 is sufficient to serve the size of the lot. Okay, and that's what we're reviewing right
Correct.
now.
That's what you're reviewing right now.
Right, and staff concurs that a 40-foot wide easement will serve that facility.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, if there are no other questions for clarification, I will close the public hearing. All right, public hearing's closed. Deliberation. We have another opportunity for more questions, or we can go straight in for a motion, which I was going to assist my acting vice chair with.
Sure. I guess ex-vice chair is de facto vice chair in the event that vice chair is not present.
Well, I volunteered you as you were walking up. I mean, unless someone else
problem,
wants
no.
to step
I got
up and do
I
it.
have it pulled up. So.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
good deal. All right, so,
Prior to taking a vote, I think it would be helpful for us to have some deliberation on this because, as it stands, I think what the site currently is and what the site will potentially change to, the city has kind of a need for both. But for myself, given the constraints of the site, I think what is proposed makes the most sense. But at the same time, I think it's kind of there's cases or reasons for it to stay or to change. So.
Yeah, is this considered legislative or quasi-judicial? This is the first one of these that I have done as a volunteer on this. So to what extent is this, meets code or
well,
legislative?
So a zone change is legislative. You're making a recommendation to city council.
and the crux of the conflict is in the economics opportunity, whether or not we believe as a community we need the housing to fill the housing needs analysis more than we need the restricted commercial access to fill a need for retail commercial in our community. And that's where the recommendation to say we concur or not with the applicant's determination of the community needs for housing versus commercial.
Well, there is a need for housing. I mean, that's clear. It's in what documents that we use. What kind of housing? I guess you debate what kind we'd prefer in the city, but this, for high density, I mean, it's surrounded. I mean, look what it's surrounded by. I mean, it's encompassed by that. There's high density to the east and around it, and there's retail right up next to it. I mean, I can't imagine, a bunch of single family, low densities going in here exactly either. So, and housing is needed, so it seems to kind of fit in concept, the surrounding area, at least to me.
Yeah, I would concur with that. And I think that the way it's set up with walkability is also a high rating here, and there's a bus stop right there. And I think that this is a good use of this particular parcel, or at least high-density zoning rather than the actual site plan itself.
Yeah, I mean, I would concur. I think that the zone is appropriate, absent some sort of comprehensive redevelopment of the entire site for mixed-use development. I think it makes the most sense. The reason I asked the question before about what the zone allowed, because I could envision some small amount of non-residential right at the frontage road on Langer potentially, but yeah, I think it makes perfect sense and provides an appropriate transition to the existing commercial.
And I think it'll get used better as residential here rather than with the applicant is arguing, it's harder to put retail back here. What would go back there? How would that benefit the community with these kinds of retail spaces kind of tucked away in this back corner behind an alley? A little more difficult, whereas residential kind of is an extension of what's already there. So I think there's benefit here as well in that sense.
I also think for the neighboring apartments and residential to the east, trying to cram in some sort of commercial there would create a much higher intense use. This high-density residential zone creates a buffering opportunity from retail commercial to the existing residents that are there. So. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Kai, is that enough deliberation for you?
I believe so.
More? Okay.
All right.
If
Do you want to make additional changes to the staff report, or is that something we can?
Nope, go, this is a good opportunity if there's another staff report update that needs to be done. So we can vote on if it changes the context of the application, then we vote on a revised application or revised staff report.
It's just a clarification point on page 9 under paragraph H, changing height density residential to high density residential.
Oh, look at that. There's no T in I.
The remainder of the criteria are net, has been addressed already. And the same for height on page 19 under findings, the third paragraph in the page.
Spell check.
Good.
Yeah. It's
On pages 22, the findings, this criterion is satisfied as conditioned below it. I just, as a clarification, and I think that. Page 25. First paragraph, 8-foot wide public utilities easement, I believe is versus public utility easement, only because it was used previously as utilities.
interesting.
That's all, thank you.
Perfect. And then we captured page 30.
all of these are corrections versus.
There's Scrivener
Anything?
errors with the exception of packet page 33. We're adding the condition of approval B9 to the findings.
Okay.
And so the B9 was the substantive change, correct?
Yes.
Addition on page 33.
Yes.
Did the applicant agree to adding B9?
Or
it was already added?
It's already a condition,
right,
but
okay.
the finding needed to have the condition stated. It's already stated.
It's stated on page 35 already.
Okay.
It's already in the conditions, but it's not within our findings.
So, but for the motion can stand as the standard language versus revised, since it's more corrections versus.
Correct. We didn't change any findings or add any
Yep.
conditions.
Okay.
Right? I'm getting head nods from staff, so we're good. Thank you
Thumbs
very
up.
much. All right.
Ready?
Mhm.
Okay. I move the Sherwood Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for Sherwood Plaza Apartments zone change and minor land partition, project number LU 2023-005 PA/MLP, based on the applicant testimony, public testimony received, and the analysis, findings, and conditions contained in the staff report.
I'll second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we forward a recommendation of approval on LU 2023-005 PA/MLP Sherwood Plaza Apartments zone change and minor land partition. Any further comments or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. All right, and then we're going to move right into our second public hearing. The public hearing on Economic Opportunities Analysis Land Use Case LU 2023-007-PA is called to order. Before staff describes the procedures for conducting this public hearing, I want to note that the applicant, which is the city, has requested a continuance of this hearing to a date certain of May 9th, 2023. The Planning Commission can grant the requested continuance or conduct the hearing this evening as previously scheduled. The public testimony received thus far has been entered into the record and will be addressed as part of the public hearing on this application, whether the hearing is conducted tonight or at a later date. Staff, is there anything further you would like to address regarding the requested continuance?
Not necessarily, but we are requesting a continuance of this application because we want to address some criteria from our agency partner, Metro.
So are there any questions for staff or any issues the commission would like to discuss related to the continuance itself, not the application? And I did, had someone showed up, we would have probably proceeded differently, but just for anybody watching this, there are no members of the audience here to testify this evening, and I'm assuming, did not receive any request to testify electronically. So we do not have an audience wishing to testify this evening. So I would ask that I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing on application LU 2023-007 PA Economic Opportunities Analysis to May 9th.
I move the Sherwood Planning Commission continue the public hearing on the application for Economic Opportunities Analysis, project number LU 2023-007 PA until May 9th, 2023.
Will there be another work session on this? Okay.
All right, is there a second on the motion?
I'll second on the motion, yeah.
All right, all in favor of continuing LU 2023-007 PA until May 9th, 2023, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving right into commissioner comments. All right, I don't have anything intelligent to add to this evening's hearing.
I was just curious, Erica, can you give an update on the project adjacent to Symposium, just here in downtown? Just would like to know kind of where it's at.
Yes, it's the Pine Street Live Work project.
Yeah.
They have building permits issued. They've had building permits issued for some time. There is a delay, and sure that's probably why you're asking. PGE is the main issue. They need to underground the overhead lines on 2nd Street, and I think PGE is just really backed up with the design and then also the actual construction to actually pull the lines underground. With that said, they're very close, so just a heads up to you guys, if you're driving on Pine Street downtown, May 1 to May 5, Pine Street will be closed for them to actually do this work. So despite the interruption, it's good news because the work is actually happening. But yeah, it's been about probably a 4-month delay with PGE, which is not what we like to see, but happens sometimes. And usually these things come in after land use. We don't usually get really detailed comments from PGE at the land use stage. So it's something I think we're trying to work on to try and get more to give the developer a heads up on some of this stuff so they can just keep moving forward once they get their building permits. But project is still moving forward, just a delay in utilities.
Yeah, I don't know if it can happen in time, but it would be great if the site would at least allow for better pedestrian pass through, especially with the festivals coming up and everything like that. But it's definitely good to
thank
hear
you.
this.
We can look at that. I can talk to engineering.
Yeah.
And see so any construction site, they're going to have a plan from engineering, so we can look at that. Yeah, thanks.
Speaking of festivals coming up, what about this parking lot redevelopment festival space? How's that
Yeah,
coming?
also on track. That project should be, so it's renamed now. Robin Hood Plaza is the formal name, so Festival Plaza to Robin Hood Plaza. Everything's going well as far as I've heard. May 30th is completion date, so before June 1st, May 30th. If you're around, you'll see the poles going in soon. So it might look a little odd to have the poles. There'd be big old poles there for the canopies without the actual canopies in. But yeah, that's the next step. The next big change you'll see is there's the poles go in the ground, and then we'll get the canopies up. But yeah, just another 6 weeks or so, less than that even, it should be done. So things are moving quickly on that. Yep.
Good news, thank you. And then for the packets that we received this evening, do we need to leave the packets that we were for this hearing for the city council's hearing? It would be helpful.
Yes, please.
So if
The first hearing.
the first hearing, so if we have our packet, so if we wrote in them, we don't want to send them along, but if we
Right.
But if you still have your packet in a way that can be passed on to the city council, you can leave that here or recycle it.
There's 1 or 2 pages. Can these be swapped in instead of
Yes.
Yes.
We
So
can,
if
we
we
can,
do-
we
if we-
can fix that.
if we dog ear the ones that have been written on?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, and then, I forgot. So can you back up? We reopened the hearing, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. Packet page 37, I called you on that ahead of time. That should have been labeled Exhibit E. What? Right, well, this is my flagged version because that aside, AKS made a supplemental submission, and that's on page 37. So when it goes to council,
We will flag that with individual,
can you flag it as Exhibit E
Yep.
and note it in the staff report that it's Exhibit E, because that was not in there. And then Exhibit E is very confusingly incorporated in with the incomplete letter, which super confusing. So, any other comments before we close? All right. All right. Then we are going to go ahead and close, and we are done.